Welcome back to another Monster Monday, the best way to start your week. To go along with the new monster I've made for this week, I've also got a new mic. So let me know how it sounds. That said, let's get you all forklift certified so that you can handle this week's heavy duty hauler, the Motocon loader.
And we all lift, and we're all adrift together.
After building the Motocon Chaser out of the Inner Cycle, I decided to tackle another one of the level 1 vehicles from Starfinder Second Edition. In this case, the noble and majestic forklift. Featuring the fantastic work of Arthur's Arts once again, my concept for the loader was obviously to be some sort of labor drone. However, their considerable strength leads some owners to install security protocols in them, to get a bit of a 2-for-1 deal. Loaders are decent at holding people down or ejecting intruders from the premises, but they aren't remotely war machines, which I did try to demonstrate with this design a bit. There were a handful of transformers for me to reference for a forklift, but honestly none of them really fit what I was looking for, whether that be visuals or their ability, which I actually don't mind too much, because that just gave me some more room to explore. I did stick with the level of the forklift vehicle, meaning our bulky bot is merely first level, which does stick a little bit with the loader not being meant for combat. It also has the standard traits that I'll be using for the Motocon drones, with the construct, mindless, robot, and tech traits. With the concept in mind that the loader is a heavy hauling labor drone, I started with a high strength for its level, while seeking to reduce the wear and tear of such loads with a moderate constitution. Now, this bulk means it's not quite as nimble, which is represented with a low dexterity, and also matches its low wisdom. These are not in any way meant to be mentally capable sorts, so this lower value works out in my opinion. This does also lend to a low perception score, which comes with low light vision, so that the manager of our mighty machine may save on their electricity bill. Keeping some simplicity in mind, a moderate piloting so that it can better operate while in its vehicle mode, but then a high athletics to make it better at lugging stuff around. And I guess grabbing intruders that trespass upon its domain. Its defenses aren't too complex either, and lead with a moderate armor class, which is meant to play into its low dexterity, while accounting for the metal literally shielding its more vulnerable components. I coupled our carrier's carapace with a high pool of hit points, though it does gain further benefits from the host of immunities granted by being a mindless construct. I did try to keep those in mind when figuring out its saving throws, which include a high fortitude save, but 2 low saves for its reflex and will saving throws alike. That low will save when it's immune to mental effects might not seem like much, but there are in fact spells across Pathfinder and Starfinder that target a creature's will without having the mental trait, such as Dizzying Colors and Ill Omen. However, before the heroes can worry about targeting saves, they may want to concern themselves with surviving the strikes of this solid sentry. These fists and forks are a flagrant disregard of workplace safety. Though, as I said, I don't want the loader to become some great warrior or anything of the sort, so I did only use a moderate value for both of its strikes. The greater reach of its fist, as well as its grab ability, led to me using a high damage value for it, whereas its prongs merely have the alternate trait that allow them to be used when in assault mode. With all of these factors taken into consideration, I decided to lean into making the loader a little bit of a brute with extreme damage on these forks, putting it a step above its fist while lacking the important benefits that the fists offer. There's a part of me that worries I should have gone for a lower attack bonus on these, but I think the numbers work out. However, if it seems to be too much when you run it, consider having the loader glitch and lower its attack bonus as its swings become more erratic. Getting into some abilities, I want to start with the basics. Firstly, like the Mechamorphs that it is based on, the loader has Convert. I had some suggestions that this should actually be a single action. I'm not entirely certain where I land on that, but I'm going to give it a try, and I want you guys to tell me what you think. Now, along with the ability to convert into a forklift, the loader also has the vehicle's heavy load ability, just to ensure that it isn't losing it between modes. This will aid it in carrying stuff in either form, which I want to mention, it does in bot mode by loading stuff up on the forks on its back like it's playing Death Stranding. As for some of its more specialized, its more unique features, the loader is meant to somewhat evoke the idea of a guard when it's installed with security protocols. this leads to the use of command grab as its sole reaction, a slightly more limited reactive strike that can only be used to grapple targets. While this only triggers off of movement, a success on that grapple obviously disrupts that movement. So I wanted to make this a tiny bit harder to trigger by removing the likes of manipulate actions from it. Now, once our carrying construct has a creature in its clutches, it has hauler to drag its victims around, whether that be escorting them off the premises or delivering them to a secure holding place until the authorities can arrive to deal with them. It also just makes sense that with a machine that can carry 1000 bulk, and also walk around with a seized creature without too much more trouble. Before we talk about the big central ability of the loader, we're going to take a quick look at pronged charge. This requires the loader to be in its forklift alt mode, but is effectively the powerful charge ability with a few caveats. It obviously has to drive instead of stride while in its alt mode, and it is further limited to the pronged strikes. Now, if it manages to land a strike at the end of its movement, it grabs the creature on its prongs until they escape against a moderate DC. I didn't want to go down the full impaling route of this effect-wise, but that is essentially what this does. Now, once the loader has a creature grabbed on its prongs or its fists, it is lined up to launch that loser. I specifically made this to be 2 actions, to make it harder for the loader to do this in a single turn. If it wants to do a fist strike into a grab, it only has a single action left, and so it has to maintain that hold for an entire round to be able to then launch them. Similarly, pronged charge is 2 actions, and that limits the usage of these 2 effects together. So if you want to do a 1-turn thing with it, you have to just grapple with athletics and then load them up with another athletics check against the reflex DC. Targeting the reflex is based off of the fact that Swallow Hole also targets reflex, and there's some similar ideas kind of going on here. Once it has a creature on its forks, the loader can rocket them upwards at non-OSHA compliant speeds and send the creature sailing through the air. I define it as 15 feet for simplicity, which is merely 7 damage upon landing due to falling, and that is in between high and extreme damage for its strikes. It is worth noting that this towering tech can tango with 2 through this ability, but the second target does get a reflex save to dodge the falling creature against a high DC. This doesn't save the falling creature, but at least they aren't landing on their friend. With that all said, you are now fully certified to wield one of these against your players. A canny carrier and capable custodian of its confines, this cumbersome construct quickly catapults crooks that creep across its quarters. There was an idea, a concept floated about somehow giving the Motocon loader a weakness to creatures that are actually forklift certified, and while hilarious, I couldn't quite work it out. As such, the loader is probably best featured as enemies encountered in heists or other adventures, where the heroes are trespassing places they shouldn't be, but places that don't quite have enough money for proper security. I talk about some more specialized loaders in the sidebar that I might someday build, but for now, I've got more drones to draw up before I can get to that. As always, let me know what you think of this creature and what other sorts of monsters you'd like to see in a comment. If you like what you see here and want more, consider checking out the Patreon that I just started up, and then be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out the blog, which is linked below, along with the Twitter and Discord. Thanks for watching, and have a monstrous Monday.
So, what do you do for a living?
I lift things up and put them down.